Hello everyone and welcome back to another session of Elden Ring PvP and another weapon showcase. Today we are taking a look at the Grossmesser. This is a weapon that is a little bit underrated in my opinion. There is another curved sword in the class that is a straight upgrade over this, but it's barely an upgrade. This one weighs a little bit less and in my opinion looks a whole lot better, and the fashion is what it's all about. So let's go ahead and start off with the basics. This weapon is dropped by the skeletons who wield it, and it is a 2% drop rate, so good luck. The weapon requires 14 strength and 12 dexterity to wield, and it weighs 4.5 units. The default skill of the weapon is Spinning Slash, and at plus 25 it has a physical base damage on the heavy upgrade path of 258 and a B scaling in strength. The big pro of this weapon will of course be the range. This is actually the third longest curved sword in class. However, there's barely a difference between first and second place, and in all honesty, it's negligible. You're not going to see it. It's not going to make any appreciable difference in a fight, so don't worry about it. Other than that, the damage on the weapon is pretty darn good. I've had a good time with it on my strength build. I messed around with it on my quality build, going with a quality infusion. That gets a double B scaling, but a much lower base damage. They're pretty much on par with each other, to be honest. There's not really much merit to going with a quality version of this, in my opinion. But either way, it's a very reliable and decently damaging weapon. With it being reliable, part of that does come, of course, down to the moveset. It is a curved sword. It's a standard curved sword moveset. It's nothing special, but it's simple, reliable, and good in a lot of instances. It's great at chasing people down. Your running R1s and running R2s are both phenomenal. The regular R1s, when someone is near you, come out relatively quickly and are able to track your opponent pretty well if they try strafing around you. A fully charged R2 actually does have an okay amount of hyper armor on the attack, so that's something that's kind of nice as well. And it is really a great weapon for throwing a lot of mix-ups. With it, you have your R2 cancels, which you can use with a ravioli step sort of thing to go a direction your opponent doesn't expect, and they have a follow-up attack as well. That said, with your back steps, you can use ravioli steps with them and go right out of them into either a running R1 or a running R2. And you can do the same with the R2 cancel, actually. You can go from your R2 cancel into your follow-up R1 attack, or you can go from your R2 cancel into a running R1 or running R2. So that's something really nice to do with this weapon that makes it a lot harder for your opponent to tell what you're doing and what comes next. On top of that, with the ability to throw in whatever skill you want, you can mix it up even further by throwing in a skill that changes your R2 to begin with. That way, throughout the fight, your opponent has to contend with the fact that your R2 will change. You can go from the standard curved sword R2 to something like Barbaric Roar, which gives you all of the hyper armor in the world and a 3-hit combo, and that's its own thing, but you can mix it up a lot by having a skill that changes your R2 throughout the fight as well. It's just something else that you can add to keep your opponent on their toes, so that's a great thing in my opinion. That said, Barbaric Roar is quite fun with it. Heavy weapon users get thrown for a loop when you trade hits with them and you win the trade because of your hyper armor and your 3-hit combo. So keep that in mind if you are using this thing. It's not something that's it's not something that's overly common, but it's pretty fun to do. So that's my take on that. Of course, it does have all of the other skills you can throw on it that are good. Spinning Slash is the default skill, but you can throw on the Ash of War for it, and that will always, of course, increase your damage and is worth doing. Spinning Slash is always a good skill to have because it does do quite a high amount of poise damage and will break your opponent's poise relatively easily. They have to have, I believe, over 100 poise or something along those lines in order to it not stagger them, so keep that in mind. Of course, Sword Dance is fine on it. It is what it is. Standard meta ashes are going to be good on it because they're standard meta ashes for a reason. They're good on everything. So do whatever you want with this thing as far as the skill is concerned, basically. It can handle quite a large variety of them, and it will do well with anything you really put on it. You can go with a Fire Infusion and throw Flaming Strike on this thing, and its damage will be quite good because of its scaling and its base damage being pretty decent. And then the fact that Flaming Strike adds a fire buff, and you've got the Flame Infusion, there's just options, and that's nice. Now, as far as the cons are concerned, there's really only one big issue with this weapon to speak of, and that's the fact that it is technically outclassed, and that is not really that big of a deal because it's actually not that big of a difference. The Bandit's Curved Sword is technically an upgrade over this. It has the slightest bit more reach and the slightest bit more damage, but typically that's less than 20 attack rating overall, and the reach difference is negligible at best. And then aside from that, the Bandit's Curved Sword also weighs a half unit more, so if there's a weight restriction, then yes, this one wins, but it's a half unit, so that's barely going to come into play unless you've really min-maxed your build as far as your weight is concerned. And if you're min-maxing your build for only 4.5 units of weight, that's a little crazy in my opinion, but you do you. Really, the big reason to use this over the Bandit's Curved Sword is the fact that this one looks prettier, in my opinion, so that's the only reason why. Other than that, though, the only major con I can come up with is that it is a 2% drop rate, but that's not that big of a deal. People will farm things forever. I mean, look at the Monster Hunter fan base. I'm just saying. Jokes about other games aside, this weapon class and this weapon in particular are really fun to use. They have been reliable. Curved swords have been reliable, powerful weapons ever since Demon's Souls, and that's something that I can appreciate. There's a consistency with the class throughout all of the games From Software has given us, and I have to say, with that, this version of Curved Swords, because of the extra utility with them, because of the ability to customize them with Ashes of War, I think Curved Swords in Elden Ring are the best that they've ever been. But anyway, I hope you all have enjoyed the video and found it helpful in one way or another. If you have, then please do all the YouTube things for me, like, comment, subscribe, and all of that good stuff, and I'll see you all next time.